We are having a historic Donald Trump meltdown, and I am very happy to share this with you. Now, to put a little backstory of my opinion of why he's reacting this way, is I believe Donald Trump thinks he has a judge in Florida, the Trump judge, who got rid of his charges, and he feels that that means that he is completely safe from any charges there. And his lawyer team, to not upset him, did not explain any sort of appealing process that the government can go through and how they most likely will be highly successful in that. Then, I think the Trump-appointed Supreme Court justices, he thought they saved him with their ruling on 1512. And his lawyers, being yes men, did not tell him the truth that that is not how that works. And a bunch of J6ers also believed that getting rid of the 1512 charge was going to magically solve a lot of problems when we all knew in reality it wouldn't. And now that reality is hitting Donald Trump because there is a brand new superseding indictment in DC that includes the 1512 charge. He still has it. This is a new indictment with a whole new group of people looking at a whole new, narrowed down set of evidence using the exact Supreme Court guidelines and still charging him. Let's get into the actual meltdown here. No presidential candidate or candidate for any office has ever had to put up with all this lawfare and weaponized directly out of the office of a political opponent. They've weaponized local DAs and local attorneys and anybody else that will listen to interfere with the upcoming 2024 presidential election. Never been done before. This is now Kamala's weaponized system against her political opponent. All of these scams will fail just as Deranged Jack's hoax in Florida has been fully dismissed, and we will win the most important election in the history of our country on November 5th, Make America Great Again. As I said, this is just the start. And I do want to, go back a little bit. He's trying to now blame Kamala Harris, just like he used to blame Joe Biden, when this is an entirely separate government entity that does this on their own and go after criminals like Donald Trump. But he also likes to call it a scam. And I think this is a tiny bit of projection because today, Donald Trump announced a new third set of $99 digital trading cards. His third set of them. And just recently he had a Donald Trump picture book, and Melania has her book. Can't appear on the campaign trail, but she can sell a book. And we have more to this freakout. This travesty is now on Comrade Kamala Harris, who is actively pushing it, rather than immediately calling for its dismissal, as should be done. This is for third world countries and banana republics, not for the USA. As Jack Smith knows, the whole case should be thrown out and dismissed on presidential immunity grounds, as already ruled unequivocally by the U.S. Supreme Court. Smith wrote the exact same case in an effort to circumvent the Supreme Court decision. The people of our country will see what is happening with all these corrupt lawsuits against me and will reject them by giving me an overwhelming victory on November 5th for President of the United States. All right, there's a lot here. Again, he's not only saying this is Kamala Harris's fault, he is saying she should illegally step in to stop him being charged. Because remember, Donald Trump wants to be dictator on day one, charge his opponents with crimes that didn't commit crimes, stop his allies from being charged with crimes. That's why so many of Trump's people are happy to commit crimes right now. You hear it in J6 circles all the time. They have no worries about the long prison sentence because they're sure Donald Trump is going to save them for any crime they committed. But on top of that, he says it should all be thrown out due to presidential immunity. No, it shouldn't. And also he says this is the same case. No, it actually isn't. They took the brand new Supreme Court rulings and working around what those entail. Even then, just the evidence that those block, he still committed these crimes. That is how egregious Donald Trump's crimes are. And they can prove it. And they proved it to a whole new set of people. Because he's a criminal. And of course, he is needing that November 5th victory, or I think possibly flee the country. But let's continue. For them to do this immediately after our Supreme Court victory on immunity and more is shocking. I've also been informed by my attorneys that you're not even allowed to bring cases literally right before an election, a direct assault on democracy. This is an unprecedented abuse of the criminal justice system. The case has to do with conspiracy to obstruct the 2020 presidential election. When they are the ones that did the obstructing of the election, not me. They cheated on the election. They go after me for cheating on the election. Interestingly, This comes after the exact same time as Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook has admitted to concealing massive amounts of information, such as Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, which was a direct acknowledgement that the 2020 presidential election was manipulated and rigged by the DOJ. What they are doing now is the single greatest sabotage of our democracy in history. All right, we have to backpedal here. It's a lot of nonsense here. So to begin with, he does right here, he really thought he got saved, right? He really thought the Supreme Court, his Trump Supreme Court, was going to save him, as I said. But also, his attorneys are telling him that they can't bring this case. That isn't a real thing, okay? And that is why I think his lawyers are just yes men that he has left, because they're lying to him. You can bring a case this close to an election. And also, this isn't bringing a new case, technically. This is a superseding indictment of a previous case, right? This is still the same case in court, basically the same evidence, because his Supreme Court he was really banking on didn't actually save him, because they can't. They can try to delay things, but they can't save someone who commits crimes so openly. And of course, here he is just lying about the 2020 election and lying about what happened with Mark Zuckerberg. I have a video detailing what actually happened there if you want to take a look. But essentially what happened is Donald Trump's DOJ knew about misinformation involving the Bidens in Ukraine, which was misinformation. Donald Trump still pushes it as real. He had his Ukraine phone call and all that, but it was misinformation. Facebook, on their own, then started removing things about the Hunter Biden laptop in case it was misinformation. That's what happened there. There's more detail in my video, but that's the long and short of it, where basically what happened is nothing. Nothing is positive for Trump, but he'll lie about it. He'll lie about it because he needs anything. He is melting down right now. And you know what? There's more. Of course there's more. In an effort to resurrect a dead witch hunt in Washington, D.C., in an act of desperation in order to save face, the illegally appointed special counsel deranged Jack Smith has brought a ridiculous new indictment against me, which is all the problems from the old indictment should be dismissed immediately. His Florida document hoax has been completely dismissed. This is merely an attempt to interfere with the election and distract the American people from the catastrophes Kamala Harris has inflicted on our nation, like the border invasion, migrant crime, rapid inflation, and threat of World War III, and more. All right, so we got to go back again. We got to circle back. It was never dead. It was never dead. If your lawyers told you it was dead, they were lying to you. They probably were. I'll admit. I think they probably were. Personally, I think they were probably lying to him. And I think this is probably actually freaking him out. And then, to begin with, ridiculous new indictment. It is a new indictment. It's a superseding indictment because they had to do this because of your Supreme Court buddies. Your Supreme Court buddies caused this to be a new indictment. That's your fault. Which has all the problems from the old indictment, and in fact, it doesn't. I have a link in my previous video going, it takes you right to this indictment. You can see it for yourself. You can compare it to the old indictment. They really narrow down and focus on exactly what they can charge him with, going with what the Supreme Court said. Really, what he should be mad at is that his Supreme Court buddies couldn't find a way to save him. They couldn't find a way to save him. Now, then he talks about, of course, how he was able to get it dismissed in Florida. And it's true. He did get it dismissed because that Trump judge, who a lot of people don't believe even actually is qualified to be a judge and has quite a bit of issues, and probably won't be a judge much longer after an investigation following a Kamala Harris victory, in my opinion. That judge did dismiss it. But notice here, he's not talking about how there's going to be appeals or any action there. He's pretending that's not a thing. I don't think he was told. I think he was lied to. That's my opinion here. I think he was lied to. I think he doesn't understand because his lawyers know they'll get covered in ketchup if they try to actually explain what's going on. And then he ends with all of his nonsense at the end. And of course, he wants to blame Kamala Harris for this. Remember, this was all Joe Biden. Tricky Joe Biden was doing this, but now it was actually Kamala because he has to immediately be able to switch and flip-flop everything because it's all imaginary. This is the Department of Justice going after him for his crime. If he didn't want to be charged in D.C., he could have not committed crimes in D.C., right? It's that simple. Same with all the J6ers. But he's not done. Of course he's not. Persecution of a political opponent. So yeah, that is Trump's latest meltdown, his latest freak out. Now, you might have watched my previous video. If you got all the way to here, you might have watched my previous video and thought, hey, didn't you say you were probably going to go to sleep? And the answer is yes, I did. I went to sleep, I took a small nap, I woke up fully rested somehow, opened my phone, and was immediately greeted with this from Donald Trump. So I had to share. Absolutely crazy. He is losing it. He has lost his mind. And it's going to get worse because, yeah, he seemed to think that his worst cases were behind him and he was going to have everything solved. And that's not true. It was never true. And if he thought that, if his lawyers told him that, they were lying to him. Just like telling, oh, you can't charge someone that close to an election. What? So Donald Trump could walk out on Fifth Avenue and murder someone as a presidential candidate? No, that's not the case. You can be charged with crimes that you committed. He committed crimes. He's being charged. Now, what do I expect to happen after this? I expect Republican committees to have fits and freak out and like demand the DOJ explain how could they possibly charge him for crimes that he committed and all sorts of nonsense. But you know what it doesn't do? You know what it doesn't change? The fact that Donald Trump is being charged with the crimes he chose to commit. He made a choice, and it is not working out for him. He made a choice in the crimes he committed, he made a choice in the lawyers he took, and he made a choice in the people he put in positions of power. He thought he chose well in Florida. I don't think that'll end well for him. He thought he chose well at the Supreme Court. I don't think that's still going to end well for him. And, of course, every time he freaks out like this, it doesn't endear him to your average non-voter, the average person who's an independent. Those people, if they look into this, if they actually wonder, are going to find out this is a narrowed down indictment with a whole new select group of people, and they still thought there was enough evidence that he committed these crimes to get a superseding indictment. The real people are going to see what happened here. This is him not even speaking to MAGA at this point. This is him yelling into the clouds. This is an old man weirdly yelling into space about how the people he pays to tell him good news didn't warn him that bad news can ever happen.